Well, it's 8:05, and we're live on the stream. So, Nick, if you want to get us started, anytime.
All right. Uh, okay, I see that it's live now. All right. Thank you, everybody, again for participating in the Global Game Jam here on the Amber Waves of Games Discord server. This is, I think, by far the best turnout that we've had. We've gotten pretty close to this, but if memory serves, most of those participants were not here by the end of that event. So this is pretty exciting for me seeing it looks like 9 games here to look at. So I'm not gonna talk much more than this. If the first team is ready to present, carpoolers, go ahead and share your screen and unmute yourself. I'm gonna call you by your team names because I don't remember who all is presenting for their teams.
Yeah, thank you. Let me go ahead and share my screen for the game. So this is kind of our first, or most of us on the team's first kind of work with Unity. This game jam, we hadn't touched Unity too much beforehand, so we're excited to have at least done something with it and have kind of just a product at the end.
I just meant, can we not have it? Doesn't. I don't care what thing we're on. I just want to be able to see. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Can you see the game on the live stream?
Yep.
Yes, indeed.
I can
Okay.
see the folder
Okay,
that it's in.
Oh, can you see the folder?
Yeah, I think you're sharing that window and not your monitor screen.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, it's actually streaming the monitor. That's my bad. Let me try this again because I think they're named the same thing. I'll just there we go. This should be it.
Yep, we see it.
Can you see? Okay, sweet. So the premise that we came up for the game for Duality, and the theming for it is that we wanted to make a little platformer that whenever you jump on it or on the platforms, the first time around they're one color, but whenever you get to a certain point, they will flip colors, and whenever you try and go back that way, you cannot go that way. So you have to go and go back through the level a different way and get back to the beginning to get to the next level. And that's kind of how we took Duality, is kind of like with a kind of color scheming. It's like, oh, if we jump onto this one, it's perfectly fine to jump on. And then if we go back, this door is now open and we can go through it onto the next level. That was kind of our thoughts with it so far. So we don't have too much in the game. We have sound working on newest one, but it was already after the due date, so we don't have too much more. But we just made a couple of fun little levels to show off, and yeah, it was kind of fun working on it for kind of our first project in Unity. So,
well, let me ask you a full question. I think I'm gonna serve as MC for these presentations if no one minds. But what I really like is that as you progress to the switching point, you can already start guessing, like, how am I going to make my way back? And I think that's a real clever, like, narrative component. Like, outside of the mechanics, like, it feels sort of like, you're a hobbit on an unexpected journey,
Yeah. Yeah, I think
I
that's
like
kind
that
of the big thing we wanted for it. And like, if we were to polish the game more and continue with the game idea, then we would have like a bunch more to work off of. But unfortunately, this is all that we do have for the game. It's just these 3 short little levels. But we still enjoyed working on it and everything like that. Do you have any other questions for us?
Yeah, it's a great proof of concept. Did you discuss, was there a mad dash to get it working, especially in an environment you weren't familiar with? Or did you have plans, or have maybe future plans for other, like how enemies might behave, or level progression, any other component, even if it's just jotted down?
We don't have anything quite like that right yet, because we were just kind of focusing on getting this just up and working for the game jam. But I actually really like this concept, and I would be really happy to continue polishing on it and make it into like an actual fledged game if our team were to continue working on it down the line. which I can already think of a couple of like ideas. For example, an enemy that only is active after you flip the switch, and ones that are only active before you flip the switch. Like that comes off the top of my head for just like an enemy type.
I could see midway through the game, you come across a level where it's really hard to get there, but then it's actually very easy to get back. There's lots of ways you could spin put spins on the concept, and just a really, really strong like premise that you can build out in a lot of ways. Very cool.
Did anyone else have any more questions?
I don't have any questions, but I do think that it is impressive for not having really worked in Unity to have a fully playable experience done within the 48 hours.
Yeah. We had a bit of help from Nate on the team. He has a decent amount of Unity. He's made a few fully fledged games, but he kind of took the back pedal and only nudged us in the right directions and kind of fix anything that we were having trouble with. So we were nice to have him on the team to help with that. But for the most part, the other three of us took up most of the work on the project, and it was our first times working with Unity. So yeah, thank you. All right.
You guys' camera's really solid for a first platformer. Did you end up doing, did you use like a plugin for that, like Cinemachine, or did you get that all spun up in the one weekend?
We just got that all spun up in the one weekend. We just have the camera attached to the player, and it just kind of moves around with it, and we've just centered it. On our first level, we couldn't decide whether or not we wanted it to the left, or like the player to the left of the actual camera or not. And actually, right before the submission, we lost our first level and had to use that level one. It was our test level, so you can kind of see some of the design at the beginning compared to some of the other levels.
Oh, sure, nice.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. For our second team presenting, Team 1.
Super original name, I know. Give me a second here, and I will pull up our project. So we also did a platformer. Ours is kind of also kind of a puzzle platformer, but with kind of a different idea. So just a moment to find my executable on my computer, and I will screen share it. So this is our game. It's just called Duality. I feel like the hardest part of any game jam for me is coming up with the title for a game. But let's go ahead and start here. So you play as this little guy. Basically, every stage is mirrored on the top and the bottom of the screen, and your goal is to get your character into the kind of vortex at the very end. So basically, everything you do on the top half or bottom half, however you want to look at it, is mirrored on the other half of the screen. The twist is sometimes the levels are not perfectly, or most of the time the levels are not perfectly mirrored on the top and bottom half of the screen. And so if you get your characters out of sync, this timer pops up in the center, and you have until that timer fills up the whole like horizontal length of the screen to basically get your characters back in sync, is kind of the phrasing we used in development. So if you don't get them back in sync before that timer expires, basically, then you lose, you get kicked back to the menu, and you have to start over again. So going to the next stage. So we've got a total of 6 levels, I think. And that's kind of the core gameplay. If anyone has any questions there, I'll just kind of continue going through this level.
It's interesting. I've seen games with a similar premise, except that sync out of sync feature feels unique to me, and it really puts it lets the pace of the levels be a little slower. You don't have to worry about precision platforming because there's a danger. When the timer comes in, suddenly you're in a panic mode, and you, the player, are in control of when that happens. So that's really cool. It makes it kind of a thinky puzzle game, but not totally bereft of action.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot. Did you? What was the path towards figuring out that mechanic? Was that early on, or was that after you'd gotten a sort of a first playable going?
Yeah, so that was the initial concept of this was that we're going to have these levels where, you're trying to keep your characters sort of in sync, sort of, and basically that whole process of making sure that they're basically mirrored the whole time, and that was kind of a core mechanic from the get-go, and that kind of played really, really nicely into the level, like the visual design and like how the UI is designed. Like I'm really happy with how that timer turned out. And also the level transitions, how we kind of like rotate the whole stage and then rotate back to just reveal the next one. I'm really happy with how a lot of that turned out. Along with levels like this where the characters kind of get split up, and you can see there I lost, but where the characters kind of get split up and then you have to like kind of platform with one and not the other. I really like how that kind of turned out. So really happy with how this turned out.
That's cool. So is each character an independent physics object, and how do you? There's a certain like unpredictabilities with physics systems. So I could see you getting out of sync even when you're not out of sync. Did you face problems like that?
That actually did happen a lot.
Oh yeah.
Initially, originally I was using kind of the default 3D rigid body and trying to kind of finagle it into a 2D environment, and we had a lot of issues where the physics kind of worked differently for the character on the bottom than on the top. And so upon switching to Unity's kind of built-in 2D physics system, it seemed to resolve a lot of the issues that we were running into. It did require me rewriting all the coding for for character movement about 3 times, but that's part of the experience. So
yeah, that's kind of standard platformer development stuff. You just don't expect to have to do that compressed in a jam format,
Right. And I feel like every time I do a platformer game, especially for like a game jam, I feel like I'm always kind of reteaching myself how to do platformer controls.
Yeah.
It's all part of the fun, though. Honestly, I feel like this jam did go really smoothly for me, especially compared to a lot of previous jams. I feel like usually I'm like going to like the last second, but this one I feel went really, really smoothly. So I'm really happy with how the project turned out.
Cool. Well done.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that games of this kind of lock themselves into the symmetry being a limitation of the player's movement, and you kind of subverted it in making it the player's responsibility.
Yeah, making sure that the physics were consistent between both halves of the screen was really important for that. Just to have that consistency there, so it never felt like, I jumped on this box and for some reason it's not behaving the same way it does on the other side. That was something that I felt was really important to avoid from happening. Because whenever you're playing a game and there's a mechanic that just suddenly isn't consistent with other mechanics, it's always very, very frustrating. So there are some instances in this where sometimes the collision detection for a player character will get stuck on a box and then like they don't move along with the other player. It doesn't happen often, but it was infrequent enough to where it wasn't really a huge issue. So thank you.
All right, up next is Viper Shark.
Go Team Viper Shark. All right, let me see this. I got my resolution, frame rate. Do I need to do anything in order to get my audio from this to come through as well? Because we got music, we got sounds.
I believe you have to share your screen, not the game window itself.
The whole screen. Okay.
Right.
But it might be the opposite of that. I don't remember.
I think it's the opposite of that. I think in Discord, if you share the whole screen, it doesn't actually share any sound.
Oh, okay. Then I will share just the window. All right, so this is Limbo Gumbo. You are trapped in limbo, cursed forever to serve your gumbo. Sound coming through?
Yep.
Yes, I can hear that.
All right, cool. So we've got 5 levels here, and this is a cooking game. You come in here, and if I full screen, does it show the whole game still?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, perfect. All right, so we got our intro here, and every time you, this skeleton in the back, are faced with a lost soul looking for food, you get their order, and that shows up down here in the left. Each soul wants a different amount of heavenly or hellish delight, and so you need to build your gumbo here in the middle to serve up each of these orders. Now, you can also kind of build out the gumbo, and when you've queued up multiple orders, you can figure out how to serve multiple ghosts with the same gumbo. So this person wants 1 heavenly taste, 2 heavenly, and 3 heavenly. So over here from our ingredients list, I can go into the 1 column, add a golden egg to make this a 1 heavenly delight. We can see the little meter down in the center there. I can serve that up. And then I can add a 2nd egg to make it 2. Serve the 2nd. Add a 3rd egg. And serve up all these people who wanted heavenly. Now we've got a 2 hellish that we need. So I will add a potato, which brings us back to neutral. And then add an evil eye to get us back to 2 hellish. And serve that one up. And the little guy gets to drink his soup and walk away happy.
I like how the gumbo is a never-ending, concoction. That it's
Right.
not that you like make a gumbo and then make a whole nother gumbo. It's you're constantly balancing the gumbo.
Exactly. But now we're going to get a little bit more complicated. Rather than just heavenly and hellish, then we're also going to say people like or dislike certain foods. So this person requires 3 heavenly, but they also want noodles. And noodles is a neutral ingredient, so it's going to pull it down. So if I make ourselves 3 heavenly and add those noodles, we're going to go back to 2. So I got to add an extra golden egg to knock that back up to 3 heavenly and feed them. Now this person wants heavenly, but they want some bat wings in it, so we'll throw in a bat wing, add another golden egg. And see, this person wants 2. They want feathers, the phoenix feathers, but that knocks us up to 3 heavenly, so let's add some worms to calm that back down. And then we got people wanting 3 evil, so let's throw some bat wings in it. Just get that maxed out to evil. Serve both of those. Now, unfortunately, these 2 people want evil, but they don't want noodles or phoenix feathers, which we've already added in. So you can click the lever here to dump your gumbo, start out with a new fresh broth, and build it out to suit their tastes instead. So we'll throw some evil eye in there. We gotta wait for it to bubble now, because no one likes cold gumbo. And then you can serve that up. Throw some extra worms to get it up to 3, and get them all good. And so the thing here is that we start mixing these requirements where now you can get a heavenly dish that requires hellish ingredients and other things where those hellish ingredients might be refused. And then in level 3, we start doing flavor count, where a ghost is going to get really specific and say, I don't want more than 2 flavors in here. And so both of these want one heavenly flavor with 2 max ingredients. So if I throw a phoenix feather, that'll get us to 2. And then I throw noodles in, that knocks us back down to 1. We can serve both of these because we only have 2 ingredients. Now this one wants a minimum of 3 ingredients. So we can throw that in. And same with the bat wings here. And then we want a true neutral stew. Get that served up. And unfortunately, now this person wants 3 heavenly flavors, but only a maximum of 2 flavors in it. So we gotta dump our stuff, wait for that to boil again. So you don't want to dump between every single order that you go with. You want to kind of feed as many people off of one pot of gumbo as you can, because we've got this timer up in the top, and if you dump it too many times, you lose 10 seconds every time you dump your gumbo. And so now if we want 3 heavenly, we can just get that going right away. We'll throw a couple bat wings in to get us all the way back to hellish, and serve it up. So our first 3 levels there kind of introduce you to each of the types of orders that you can receive. And then in level 4, things start mixing up. You're going to have 2 requirements per ticket, and you can get a mixture of the 3. So we'll see this person wants bat wings, that person wants limited ingredients. So we can kind of combine these. I think we can fill all 3 of these with the same gumbo. If we throw bat wings and noodles, that brings us to 2 evil. And we can serve all 3 of those hungry ghosts. No eggs in that, so we can get them served as well.
I think the genius thing here is the fact that you can you get these 4 orders out on screen at once, and you can kind of puzzle out what the best order in which to serve them is. That's really clever.
Yep. Yeah, and so like here, you know, this one actually wants a neutral soup. We just dumped our soup, so we've already got that ready to go. They just want the broth. They're boring. But it's that whole, like you said, it's puzzling out exactly the order you want it to go in.
How was getting the balance of that? Because you obviously have some randomization here. Did you have to do a lot of testing, or did you just kind of like set a couple of random seeds and like it seemed okay? And how do you balance that with how much time you give the player to complete the orders? Or was it just a lot of haphazard? I'm just imagining because it's a jam, it's a throw it together.
Yeah. So we started out with basically hard mode, where everything was 3 requirements, and then we were actually running into a lot of issues where it was impossible to fulfill orders. When things were 100% random, then they ended up being, we would have 1 ingredient maximum with a specific score you had to reach, but the only ingredient that could get you to that score was the one that they said they refused to have.
Ah.
And so we ended up with, that was a big problem on our side. And so what we ended up doing was, that's kind of why we had level 1, 2, 3, was that we could build out those pieces, and then we just constantly spawn in the orders at 1 every 5 seconds for you. And really what it ended up being was, the way I balanced it was I played it and I timed myself for how fast I could beat levels 1, 2, and 3. And then I assumed that a new player could complete half as much. And that's just how I counted up the orders for levels 1, 2, and 3.
And how did you solve the sort of impossible orders? Did you have to like have a bunch of conditionals for specific things, or did you have a more bespoke system for it?
Yeah, it was mostly conditionals for figuring out the edge cases. Yeah. So if you had one ingredient, that's a really strong minimum condition, or a really strong maximum condition. Like the only way to accomplish this ticket right here, because you can only have 1 ingredient, is to use eyeballs.
Right. And
so basically I said, if you ever get a single maximum, you can't have an ingredient condition. I just check for the really hard edge cases, and I make sure that we can't go beyond those, is how I handle it.
Right. So not mapping out every single edge case, but categories of edge cases.
Right, yep.
That's cool.
And then, we need... I think we're failing on this one. So I guess we're not going to be Employee of the Month here, but... So then here we've got, standard game over. You can replay the level or you can quit out.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. Well, I didn't actually like it at first that you couldn't see the ingredients that you've already put into the gumbo, but after watching you from level to level, I do like the kind of memory strengthening aspect of being forced to know what you've already put in it.
Yeah, and that was sort of a balance decision as well, where at first we were thinking that you could only use each ingredient once, and then it would be really easy because like those ingredients would be knocked out, and then you would reset your gumbo whenever you needed to remove an ingredient, and like the ingredients could disappear off of your board, and that we had this idea of like managing the resources being more of the point of the game. But when we got into it, looking at the orders and planning out how you were going to fulfill all of them ended up being a little bit more entertaining, I think. Where instead of, like for level 1, it was for teaching a new player, having them need to balance the heavenly versus hellish dish, and then also teaching them when to reset the gumbo ended up being a little bit difficult to take in all at once and to try to teach all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we ended up doing was that level 1, you can complete level 1 by just throwing more shit in the pot. Like you commented on that was that, I see, it's just one big pot of gumbo and you just keep building it to be what you need.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that concept really really lands with people well, rather than the throw away your pot of soup and start again.
Yeah. And then when you later introduce the thing where you have to dump it, it's kind of it's a delightful extra mechanic. Rather than it being introduced.
I got excited watching him dump out his gumbo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's interesting is, a lot of times these things, like different, games have many pieces. They all come together, and some influence each other. But in the jam environment, you don't always have time to have things influence. And one of the things I was thinking is, when you're playing the game and the gumbo, like all the different things, it might benefit from a lot of color. But you chose a limited palette, so that influenced the gameplay in a way that you couldn't lean on that as an indicator, and that like refined your gameplay a little bit, which is interesting.
It did. It made our ingredients simplify a lot, actually. Mm-hmm. So we had originally talked about, with the duality being the theme, this was going to be a heavenly versus hellish thing where you saw the ghosts and you had to like guess whether you needed to send them to hell or heaven with your dish, instead of just being the cook. And then there was a lot of the like, okay, how do we show it? How do we get it so it's easily readable? And then how do we match the ingredients against that? Do all of the heavenly ingredients have to be golden or rainbow or something like that? Mm-hmm. And we realized when we went over to the Game Boy aesthetic and everything was just shades of green, it was a lot more down to earth, and it was a lot more just find what the soul needs and give it to them.
Yeah.
And that also changed the tone of the game at that point. Mm-hmm. Was that it went from being this game that was actually kind of serious and kind of like you're making an important decision for them, and instead just like you're meeting a lost soul, give them what they need. We can play happy music and you can do good.
Right. No judgment.
Right, exactly.
It's not that kind of afterlife.
Yeah. And I guess for a little bit of information about the team, I did most of the programming here. My wife, Dree Fitz, did all of the music and the sounds and some of the UI elements here. And then our art was all done by, I think, Nick is not on the call. The other Nick, not no Nick. And Nick Scar is actually an artist from New Zealand who has been working on an offset schedule and has been working, it's now his Monday, and so he worked into the start of the week to actually help us get this completed. So that's pretty cool.
Wow. But you also had a 24-hour production schedule then. In a
We
sense.
did, yeah.
You go to sleep and wake up to,
where you go to sleep. Yep. Wake up to new art assets for it.
That's great.
Yeah, and that is Limbo Gumbo.
I'm also really excited to see if maybe you might add an endless mode at some time in the future.
Yes,
Because
that
I can
is
imagine myself
definitely
playing
next
this
step.
for a while.
Right, yeah, because what we did here was you had 2 minutes to serve a certain number of people. The other way to go about it would be like every soul you serve gets you 5 more seconds, and it's like that classic time attack style game. So you do want to then stack up people to get them all served off of one pot of gumbo so you don't lose 10 seconds. But also, if you sit too long with your queue full, then you can't get the next ghost, and so you lose that time as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm looking forward to that then. All right, our next team, Lethally Potent Sparklers.
I mean, you could just call them sparklers.
I could, but Lethally Potent
Really drives
feels
it
a little
home.
more sparkly.
Yeah.
I think I crashed for a second there. How do we look?
Looks okay.
I
can see
can hear and see you.
your Unity game.
All right,
window.
we are going to be doing this in Unity Editor to deal with some bugs that we had in our builds. So I guess I'll just get started with it. So the idea that we had for, I don't like to turn this down for me. So our character has these 2 different modes that they can be in, and one of them is kind of as this person, and the other is with these robot legs. And they interact with the objects in the environment based on what mode they're in. And so basically, the robot mode wants to interact with these more mechanical, inorganic parts, and they'll not be affected by them. And the human needs to interact with the organic parts. And then sometimes Lauren made our tutorial and did this great thing where we actually need to switch to kind of the opposite in order to get through that section. So here we have our plot introduced in text form.
It's a clear sign of good, good flat telling if you're literally writing the word on the screen.
Yeah, we had a lot of issues communicating kind of what was going on. I think the sound effects that we added for some of these things help, so that we get like a block crushing noise and a like damage kind of crush noise that's happening there. Definitely some additional like animations on the blocks would make it a little less confusing when you find yourself in a weird state.
So tell me about your level design process, because I think like the potential for this mechanic is so grand that I would have a hard time knowing where to get started.
Yeah, so we basically made all the blocks we're using Unity's 2D tile map system, which it was actually a lot harder to work with than I thought it would be in terms of giving the individual blocks identities. I didn't use their like custom file. I think it's called a scriptable file. And I think that's kind of how you're supposed to add logic to them. And I, on Friday night, just didn't want to watch a tutorial on that. And I just made it so that every block is on its own layer, and they all share some logic. And you might have noticed that the like Rust blocks kind of were all getting removed simultaneously, and that's because they all share a single collapsing block component. So that was like a little bit jankier and less intuitive than I thought it would be. But working with painting the blocks was really satisfying because we just had these, and actually that was how some of the levels got made. Was just we had the level design tools, and somebody just like looked at them and they were like, "What can I make with these obstacles? What's a good order for them?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that iterative process probably went a lot faster too. You could build something, test it, build something, test it.
Yeah, I normally wouldn't think that an iterative approach would be good for a game jam. I would really just want to have my whole vision and just get it out as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And this really helped in terms of not knowing where we were going to go, that we could make some changes.
That was actually one of the key parts of the level design, because Lauren showed up, like McElhatton and myself are here on site together. And we kind of started out building the blocks and like, okay, this one dissolves if you get on it as when you're a human, and this one dissolves if you're a robot. And we were able to pass off kind of the level design to Lauren, and she like worked with those tools in a way that was much cooler. Like this scene right here where you see rust blocks, which dissolve if you're the robot directly over things that'll damage you.
Mm-hmm.
That was a cool aspect that didn't occur to us. It occurred to Lauren, who didn't build or define the blocks in particular, but knew exactly what to do with them, whereas we didn't.
Yeah, I have on projects built level editing tools, and you quickly get surprised by what people come up with them. And you think like, oh, I'm constraining the design space here. So, but actually you're really blowing it up because you're giving people a definition to work with, and then they can find all the corners of the space you've provided.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened here with this the section where you need to switch modes to get through the level. I really never thought that would be the way that you would interact with kind of the two different natures. I thought that it would be entirely negative to be in the wrong mode.
Yeah,
so that really adds a lot more texture, I think, to the game.
Yeah, it's a good 1-1 thing. It teaches the player, like original first obstacle, you're taught to fear and avoid the wrong mode, but then to progress through the very first level, you need to learn, there's actually more to it than that. And I think that's very clever doling out of the mechanics to the player.
I really appreciate that in relation to the character's design. Mm-hmm. When you're using your robot legs, you're being held up off of the ground at the exact height of the acid pits or the yellow pits. Mm-hmm. And that kind of tells the player that it might be, safer to stand there with those legs. That's just really well done for like Mark said, the level 1-1 kind of design.
Yeah, that was pretty much an accident. It's like not perfect, but it definitely felt like it needed to be the acid pools needed to be lower than the standard block size, and the robot version is about 2 blocks tall, so it worked out.
Originally, when we were kind of like throwing around ideas and we weren't sure how the duality was going to come into play, we were like, okay, what about the robot comes out? It kind of started with like, if anybody's seen Spider-Man, there's like the Dr. Octopus guy. I'm not sure if that's his real name.
That was my first thought, was Doc Ock.
Yeah, that's what we came up with. And then we were like, oh, it's going to be busy on the screen. What about 2 octopus arms? That's like a dualitopus, right? Which is great. Additionally, we kind of thought, like, what if he swung back and forth almost comically? And we played it into something that's not hilarious, but rather kind of looks nice. Looks like this is a good animation.
It just ended up seeming natural that's what would happen, I think. It was a joke when we kept talking about how important that was going to be, that you swung back and forth, and now it's just part of how you communicate that you're moving. It actually isn't swinging as much as it should, though.
I do feel like the iterative design process is us orchestrating accidents.
Yeah, so exactly.
When we find something good that works, it's
I think the only other thing I'd have to say about the design is that it was really important to me when we were brainstorming that we tried to have the duality be the two natures are somehow simultaneous. And so having you always have the backpack or the human be there, I think satisfies me in terms of making that happen.
Another crucial portion of the design really came from the music track. Chase joined us to lay down some tracks, and I feel like that's where we really shifted how we were building the level. Like suddenly we had a purpose to where we were putting everything, and that came together really nicely. I don't know if you guys can hear the soundtrack going now.
I'm not getting any audio. I can hear
we have to restart.
I can hear the sound effects, but not the music.
All right, let's play it, because I'm not sure if anybody, I hope there's some Nintendo 64 junkies in the audience, but like there's this level in Nintendo 64 where you've got this water and you're like hearing this happy, jolly music and it's upbeat and cool, and then you submerge yourself because there's water here. You go under the water,
Mario 64, yeah.
and suddenly you hear like different resonance and like it's just an enchanting thing, and yet it's the same thing. And that's what we requested of Chase, was like, can you bring us the duality in the music? And so if we change forms, you got kind of a more digital variant of the music, as though you're submerging into AI or something.
That's great. It really kind of
I like that.
It really sells the mode switch, you know. The player kind of has a different. It's like I'm waltzing versus I'm creeping, you know, as you play.
Yeah.
I think for the concept, that's pretty much the whole thing there. In terms of technical stuff, I use the Unity's more recent 2D skeletal animation for the character, and that was really hard to learn like on the fly. And so I actually ended up putting in this 3D model for the robot, like because I knew I could do that more quickly for that other aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and then learning the tile maps at the same time. I'm glad we did that. I think that's all that I have.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone recognizes the stack. So I'm new to Unity. I do develop software engineering for like corporations or what have you, but I don't do the graphical stuff. Some of you might recognize this as, if you Google add health bar to Unity, you get this health bar, and so that's where I came from with this project.
When you only have 48 hours, any way it can get done is the way it gets done.
Yeah, I think it's crazy we have a health bar.
Yeah. Get us our version control if anybody's interested in the technical side. It was exciting for moments when we had merge conflicts that we didn't know we even had for a while.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see if you continue with this. I really like the character swapping mechanic.
Wow, thanks.
Our next team, if I can find my list, is I Talk with My Fists.
Oh boy. Boy howdy. Do we talk with our fists? We're very good at it. Are you all ready in the audience there?
Yes.
Ooh, we're pumped.
That's a lot to expect from us, I think. Can we really be ready for what you've got for us?
We'll find out. I have to basically share my screen as soon as the game starts, because there is a timer on the game and we don't have any menus. So let's go ahead, share applications, go live, and everyone can see the music, see the game, hopefully hear the music as I'm playing it right now. But welcome to I Talk with My Fists. In the game of life, everything you do has a consequence, right? So we wanted to simulate that here in I Talk with My Fists, in that your actions speak louder than your words. So you see this little adorable bee? The world is ending, and everyone's in a panic and in a frenzy. So you only have 3 minutes to get to a little shelter located at the top of the mountain behind the ruins. So you're basically running around collecting resources, which is going to be kind of like personality points, as you see on the top left. So as I grab this blue mushroom, I'm going to rank myself as a little bit more of an exploratory person. And if I kill a little bee, it makes me a little bit more of a violent person.
I thought you were collecting them.
Yes, for collecting the bees. That's exactly what we're talking about here. But you also have people in the little town village. So if you help people, collect some little equipments, you'll gain additional power-ups. Faster movement. You help them out, and if you're first time playing this game, these people will tell you, "Oh, would you get some acorns, get some mushrooms for us?" So on and so forth. But now that I have some additional powers, I can traverse the area a little bit faster. Oh my god! Ah! The bees are after me! Anywho.
So this is a full-on Metroidvania then?
Yes. Ah! I'm gonna get you, bee. Revenge! Anywho. But yeah, in a full Metroidvania style, as you get more power-ups, you become faster to traverse, and there are, in idea, what is this? I'm looking for several endings available for players to unlock based on how maxed out their personality is on the top right. So on the top left, I should say. So you see, you have all these little attribute bars, and I'm very explorative, and I'm very much an achiever with very little violence on my meter there. So as you see, as I interact with the world, picking up these little acorns makes me a little bit more of an explorer, and like, and on top of that, it also affects my other stats too. So if I were to attack things more frequently and become more violent, I will actually deal more damage to enemies as well. So, but imagine this little platforming segment that we're going here. I have to thank our amazing artist, Aaron, for making these wonderful assets. I would also like to thank our wonderful lead developers, Lane and Shanti, who have taught me and Patrick how to use Unity for our first time ever. And then Patrick is also the composer, which, as you can hear the music changing tunes, also based on which personality type you're most expressing on the top left. And as I'm running around here, this is a little bit easy for me to traverse because I have gone through, helped the townspeople, and gotten the power-ups. But imagine trying to traverse this area without being able to dash very far or being able to double jump. And then as you see the timer runs out, we have our little wonderful guardian atop here. And of course you can approach this challenge in multiple ways. You can of course just attack the guardian, and it takes a little bit of a while to deal damage. Ah! He's after me! Anywho, but if you attack him, he gets mad, of course. And of course he has quite a bit of health. So if you actually want to beat him up, then you're going to have to dedicate yourself to doing a little more violent. On top of that, but besides that, you can approach this puzzle however you like, in that if you've gained a double jump ability, you can actually just hop over him. So there is a non-violent solution to getting to this door. And of course, there's multiple endings to happen as well. Genocide run, that's exactly right, Taro. But I'm gonna let the timer run out, because there's of course, inaction is also a choice in life as well. So I'm going to go ahead and let the game run out and fade to black as I will take your questions now.
What's gonna happen? Wait.
Game just ends?
The game closes out.
So was not going through that door a way to preserve the ending for people who want to play it?
Exactly, yes.
No spoilers?
But also, going through the door, you do get an ending. We only currently have 2 endings implemented right now, but ideally, there is an ending for each maxed out personality, so on and so forth.
Cool.
Yeah, so, right. I agree.
Peter, I want to ask you specifically because I was watching you on Friday night start putting together the level design stuff and getting familiar with those tools. talk about that process of like not ever using Unity to be, doing all this layout and.
Yeah, it's very outrageous, I will say, in that on Friday night we were talking. We had our initial idea for this game. Wow, is that we wanted to make it so that you were able to talk and create dialogue with the world without any like dialogue boxes. So you don't actually have to like say yes or no to an objective, or you don't have to say that I'd rather not be a violent person. You just do the thing. And so we had to. Oh my God, this bee. I have to kill this bee. It's just promising. But it's basically just saying that that was the premise. And as we walked into the game itself, it became very apparent that like that's a very big scope to have to get through in game jam.
Yeah.
So we had to cut things back and forth and scale it down. And so we wound up basically dividing the work that Patrick and I can work on level design. Because we don't actually know how to code and script or anything like that. So then we relied on Lane and Shanti to work on this coding and scripting. So everything that you see in terms of the animation, like the bees having a patrol, Lane was responsible for the HUD up in the top left. It's phenomenal. And the fact that whenever you interact with something, it just changes accordingly. And like you see the little thrust up, it pumps it. Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah. All that if it's got juice, Lane's behind it.
Exactly, really.
So let me ask you then about how you play. You can play it in different ways. So let's say you choose the all violence route and you don't get any of the special powers, and you're just stuck with a limited move set, but with a taste for blood. How much harder is it to reach the top of the level, and how much did you have to design around perhaps a set of controls that maybe were in the process of being made?
That is correct. We actually took the time to like revisit everything, be like, okay, do we actually want the player to be able to get to the top without any power-ups? And the answer was yes, because we did want there to be a viability for all the routes, if you will. So if becoming more violent, so I have the double jump now, and I can't take the time to attack these little dudes, which are just little mini guardians. Oh my God. But yeah, so Patrick did take the time to create the runes in a way where you can actually climb up all the way to the top using just the single hop and your basic dash. So it is possible to get that, and we did want that to be an actual ending. So yes, we did have to go through and account for all the different possibilities.
So whose choice was it to give you the dash from the very beginning?
It was like a really good team discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we wanted to make sure like we were initially going to put an attack in, and it just made sense that since mobility is a big thing of this game, because time is basically your negative factor. So that we kind of mixed the two, saying that if we want to keep mobility key in the game, and we wanted to make it so that players could still choose violence if they chose violence, is to just mix the two. So from that get-go, we said, okay, so we have to keep it in right away.
Right. So if you gave very limited to no additional moves, then the player would not be encouraged to choose any other path but to go for power-ups, because it would be too hard, right? Yeah, that's interesting.
Yep. But yeah, I'm still down for more questions if you got it. Beyond that, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Do you plan on including an additional ending for inactivity, just letting the time run out? Because I do appreciate the idea that games can accept not making a choice as its own choice.
Yes. So I would say we kind of have that right now, but it is. I do agree that what is it? Inactivity being a choice is a fun choice itself. I'm just gonna hop. Oh my God, no! We're not gonna make it. Okay, but yes, I would say we definitely plan, like even in the later versions, between each 4 social aspect or each 4 of the personality traits, that is also a personality trait of like just being passive, if you will.
Now, what's interesting about that is that you want to make sure you differentiate player intent with mechanical expression. So if a player doesn't reach the door in time, as you didn't just there, is that because they were too slow and didn't make it as much as they tried, or because they chose not to? And so you have to kind of You have to work around that and make sure that the ending you're giving the player feels correct to the player's behavior, or could be surprising to the player, but when they look back on it, they realize, oh yes, I did play that way. You know, it's a tricky thing to balance. It's a bigger scope for a game jam than maybe you even realized. Very cool.
Oh, very
you guys,
much so.
You guys took it on.
That would be a very difficult design problem, given that you're trying to give the player the ability to express themselves without dialogue, so you can't ask them what they intended.
Yeah, it is very tricky, and you spelled best. Sorry, I'm enjoying the questions in chat, but yeah, it was definitely a much bigger task. That I would say this is kind of like a quick test to what I was looking to do for a bigger game down the road. And in terms of setting a premise, I think this is pretty fun. I'd like everyone's opinion at some point to give it a run. Tell me and then tell me if it was engaging for what you wanted to do. In terms of just what a platformer could be. But yeah, a lot of times people think a deep storytelling game, they're like a visual novel or a JRPG, if you will, which has a lot more action or a lot more like downtime. And I'd rather have that it'd be an action platformer where there's constantly things for you to do. And you're not bogged down by any type of dialogue box. So
I look forward to playing this one.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Any other questions? Otherwise, I will pass it on to the next team.
I think that's all I've got.
All right. Then thank you guys so much. This has been Louder Than Words, and whoa! Ignore that.
All right. Up next, we have Sudden Buckaroo.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
I heard that.
Excellent. Sharing. I'll share everything. Attempt to share. No, I won't have to share audio. Wasn't working when we tested it earlier. So, what's actually happening here behind the scenes is there's a guy wearing a Oculus Quest VR headset, and then some earbuds tethering him to his PC. So I am a flesh conduit between the virtual and real worlds. Just kind of relay to people in there. Here is a view of what I'm seeing. Oops.
Everyone should appreciate the extra steps that Zach has to go through to show off this game. It's like half the battle of developing is like all the stuff around it when you're working with this kind of tech.
So I'll probably do it from this tab then. See a live view?
Yes.
Okay, great. Make that a little bigger.
Looks good.
So my teammates are somewhere in this world. You guys. Ryan. Matt has. You guys hear Ryan?
Very quietly.
They said you're super quiet. That's weird. Oh, you know what it is? So I've actually got a microphone for my earbuds, and the PC are kind of close to the speakers on my Oculus. That's how it's coming through. Matt was here, and he just vanished. That's the thing that happens in the metaverse. So we're all developers, and we love Global Game Jam, but we super miss being in person. So in order not to recreate our day jobs of git commits and looking at each other, we tried to use VR to recreate a little bit of the social person sharing a space kind of feel. Last year we used an engine called Rec Room. Matt just phased in. Hey, Matt. And used an engine called Rec Room, and we hedged our bets because Rec Room has VR clients as well as PC, client, Xbox, and PlayStation, and everything else under the sun. What we found, though, was about 90% of our work, 80 to 90%, was better in VR. And the only thing that was better 2D is just typing, essentially. Positioning objects, if you have a snapping grid and this kind of stuff, is great. Coming from knowing Unity well, of course, you get handed a weird scripting system that frustrates you at every turn. And that's just sort of expected, but you have high highs and low lows. So we are learning everything from scratch. We've never been in Horizon before. We took a couple hours look at it when it debuted a year ago, and then ignored it for an entire year. And it's a 3D social space where you kind of create and play at the same time, which leads to a lot of the fun and entertainment. So you kind of see as I'm looking around here, a very low polygon kind of look with some ambient occlusion stuff. And none of us are artists, we're all coders. So this is actually okay. It definitely, you can tell good designs versus bad designs, but you can't a lot of detail that we aren't able to create. And you saw a lot of the pictures this week centering on kind of these weird cabins and some physics stuff. Coming into a brand new space, we just kind of play with everything the first night and try to find the fun and find the mechanics that we can accomplish in a short amount of time. The thing that we really liked was physics, and knowing that network physics is a terrible idea, we did it anyway. So we'll demo that for you if one of you guys wants to grab this giant hammer over here.
I do appreciate the call. Maybe like, we'll just get started. So someone just grab the giant hammer.
Yeah. When you're creating your first assets, you don't worry too much about size and shape and anything else. And it's just the ridiculousness of it when you're in the 3D space and it flies towards your eyes and you feel like you want to duck. It's hard to convey. But there's, of course, example scenes. We check those out. We really, and there's beautiful worlds with really highly functional bees and darts and all this kind of stuff. Here, I'll reset your cabin for you. And we wanted to learn from those, but then not imitate them. And if you want a headset, either a Quest or an Oculus Rift for PC, oh yeah, that's a good demonstration of using our giant hammer in combination with the costume system. You gotta get a little closer, Ryan.
Okay, I can't see what I'm in.
He can't see because he's looking at the ground, he said. You see all these examples and you kind of learn things. If you just want to get running quickly, you just take one of those worlds, clone it, and then just start adding your stuff to it. And you've got all these pre-made drawing items, airplanes. There's a world full of different kinds of laser guns, of course, and things like that people want to do. And then there's just really simple worlds with very, very simple scripting on a bunch of little examples that you can learn from. And we wanted to kind of go to the low level and try out a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm. How much can you do in an environment like that, and how much of it is portable in the sense that you could take it outside the platform or make use of it outside the platform?
Outside of the Oculus Horizon servers?
I mean, just in terms of, is it like like Dreams or Mario Maker in the sense that it living there is a big part of its appeal, or is it can it be something that can travel?
Yep, it's locked in the servers. Mm-hmm. And you can see like there's no textures on anything. That's your number one way to cut down on little children griefers.
Right.
Created environments like Roblox, like this, like Rec Room. So there's predefined textures and colors, and then even the terms of service explicitly call out that you shouldn't build suggestive shapes or motions, human motions, your worlds. We kind of just stay away from the public spaces because there are a lot of younger kids in them. But one of the things we wanted to show here, just real briefly, again, we didn't get very far in gameplay, but it's interesting new tech, I think, to most people. So I'm in what we call playback mode, like I'm actually playing the game. Ryan got really large there for a second because he went into editor mode. It's just a flick of my joystick, and I can see trigger volumes, scripting blocks, various gizmos. So something like resetting the world is this extremely simple script. wrong. What am I looking at? Yeah, that's right. I don't know. Work on that later. Just living on a different block. It's not inside that one. And you can see, you can open these attributes windows and drag connections between them and do visual. What's nice about this versus Rec Room is you can also do, so Ryan's apparently dropped his controllers or he's having a seizure. You can do callbacks and register events and send events and some of the patterns that you're used to in a Unity environment. Mm-hmm. There's like shocking low-level APIs, like handing off ownership of network physics between different players. Huh. I was so surprised that's in there. And it's because they want to build these high-quality results. Mm-hmm. They don't want people to talk about it like it's the second tier, and that's super disturbing.
Yeah, it's never going to look like the commercials, right? It's always going to be a little bit, have that charming wonkiness. It's never going away.
Yeah. So things very fluid and fast, undo and stuff, and you can turn on grid snapping, want stuff to do more predictable things. You can scale, you can snap corners and all this kind of thing. One of the things I just want to show that's super unique is the fact that Matt and I here can both be hanging out on this little cube, minding our own business, and then Super Giant Ryan. And, show us your uvula. Closer. Nice. Do some dental work. So it's actually super common to see he's giant or somebody goes really tiny to try to align something. And there's just people floating around the world at all these crazy scales. And it's a unique thing. Some of this motion that you can see me doing made Ryan sick approximately every 2 hours. So I am no longer the most sensitive VR motion of anybody. I'm the second most.
And so it blocks your peripheral to prevent that. That's kind of an old VR trick, right?
Yeah. So really, we just got some tech here to show that we were working with. But any kind of questions? I guess one thing that's really interesting is we love this physics so much we pushed it farther than we're allowed to. There's quotas for things like this. Oops, let me box in our world here. Let me just get rid of this. So what you'll notice is a cabin to my left that is a standards physics system. Like, well, it's sliding off because of course it is. It's on a triangle, and you're like, that's not the least of the problems. The problem is it explodes after a while. The penetration, the gravity, and then the force comes and destroys everything. If we watch it long enough, it'll explode again. So what we did is actually put together a crazy script that is inside of one of these volumes, and everything inside it to sleep as soon as you run the world. Sleep meaning turning off the physics. And then as soon as the hammer goes inside this inner volume, it wakes it all up. And the interesting aspect of that is the quota system that you have for physics looks at the objects as the world starts. So we're going to attempt to publish something that exceeds quotas in gameplay, but not as it's loaded. Just to see what happens.
Right. Test the limits.
See how that goes.
Yeah.
Because in our play testing, it was okay. I think if everybody has good there's probably a lot of margin for people with bad networks or busy home networks and that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's interesting that like as a sort of a play around environment, it has a couple of like it has rules you have to stick to, like how you align things and how you expect to work with stuff. But then at the same time, it allows you to do things like put physics to sleep on like that seems like speaking of the theme of duality, it seems like they're kind of coming at it from both ends of trying to make it as easy as possible to use, but also giving you more low-level control than you're used to in a system like this.
And if anybody's used Rec Room, it comes with, like 200 or 300 predefined objects. And they've already got a market up and running where other users can sell you objects to use. This doesn't do that. They give you very simple examples and very detailed examples, and you can pick which ones you want.
Yeah.
To either imitate, or you can just start with what they have. The other thing I forgot to mention is they're thinking in the future. So these are actually subdivision surfaces. You can make out polygons, but it actually changes on the fly. So that's an interesting thing too, is the geometry changes as needed. These we picked ones with whoops, too close. You see the beveled edges. They're subdivision as well. It turns out Quest 2 has plenty of GPU power and not nearly enough CPU power for compared to a PC. Everything that's marked as static gets baked into one giant mesh, and then the ambient occlusion is computed on the server. If we were to move these objects, you see the shadows update like a second later.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's interesting to see what the next couple iterations will be, and if they can kind of be super compelling. Because today it's not a master of any one domain.
Right, right. They're not designing for a specific hardware spec. It seems like they're trying to scale to different and maybe design for future hardware specs.
Yeah, they definitely want this world to be ported forward. They've got these quotas that are recently, I think, were just all bumped up from what I saw before because they depreciated the Quest 1 as a slower chip. It still runs in there, but they tell you it doesn't. They tell you it's not supported.
Right, right.
Yeah, the gestures. So the next headset will have tracking. Now that they have to come up with weird ways to manipulate people's faces by using your hands.
Right, right.
Let's do the confetti, guys. Confetti. Just ridiculous. It's really weird.
So do you see what I think that there's a lot of this is a targeted at enterprise in a lot of ways, which probably explains why there's not a lot of there's not a lot of items in the marketplace. It lets you build your own. But what do you see as the potential? Could you build a full gameplay experience in this, or is it really much more about building social spaces that are interactive?
Yeah. Exactly, light interaction. You're always going to be bumping up against the walls. We went and played, shooting zombies and buying upgrades in the mall. Everything looked like worse than Minecraft.
Right.
It's possible, but it's not good. And there's some name confusion because Facebook's renaming stuff about every 2 months. So this is Horizon Worlds. Horizon Workrooms is the thing targeted at business. And that is kind of like a Discord with avatars is one way to think of it. Yeah, this is overrun by feral children. So if you go to the public spaces, they're gonna be screaming and running around you.
Yeah. Well, that's who has time for these things. So
yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, and people pop in and out. It's kind of interesting. And if their headset goes to sleep or what, there's a lot of network state that is keeping in sync. All right, let me get out of here.
Kind of shows that the more things change, the more they stay the same. Like there's the VR space there's so many more capabilities than there was 5 years ago, but a lot of the same core concerns that people had when they started building things like this kind of are still around, haven't really been solved. We've really just been dealing with it, and maybe dealing with it is the solution. Working around it.
Yeah. I mean, for people that did VR in the early days, 2013, 2016, for this last wave, you have the same capabilities. They're just now $300, and instead of updating Steam and flipping audio configurations around for an hour, you push the button and it boots, and then you put it on your face, and you're in VR in 10 seconds. And then I had to get a Facebook account to do that, but that's changing, sort of. Great. Well, thanks. Thanks
for showing it.
This online stuff on. It was a lot of fun.
Well done getting the demo working.
Kinda.
Well, it's an extra challenge.
All right. Up next, we have Sugar and Spice.
I guess that's me.
Are you Sugar or Spice?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know if we discussed that. I suppose Carl can jump on too, since it's just the two of us. I'm going to say I'm sugar. Being first, that's not necessarily true.
Carl, I've given you the presenter role, so you should be able to unmute yourself. If you're interested. Otherwise, you can leave Scott to...
You may have to leave and come back for it to take effect.
All right, we got rid of Carl. The trick worked. Oh, he's back.
We can talk about him. Okay.
Oh.
So, Carl, sugar or spice?
Either one's fine with me.
You're each a blend.
Right, so the game we made is Super Swing On, and I'm presenting this from my Raspberry Pi, so hopefully it works smoothly enough.
Looks good. No audio though, if that concerns you. But it looks good.
Nah, there's not very much sound. Yeah, I just did the window version, so maybe that doesn't do sound. I've done this before, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly how this fit in with the theme, other than two ends of a thing, and I think we sort of lost why that was a duality, but this is a game we made. So it kind of starts out, and there's this locked blue area. As you can pull the two pieces together to sort of jump, and you can swing back and forth, and you can grab the next hold, and use that to move around. And once I get this blue key, it unlocks the blue areas for me. Now I can back up here and jump through the blue now. Here you can kind of do some swinging.
I appreciate the tutorialization as part of the environment, the little text there. It's a good shortcut for a jam game, and it really worked, really effective.
It felt like we needed something in there. I don't know. There could have been more about which buttons you press and stuff like that, but I don't know. I felt at least these handholds or the handholds, these holds that are color specific. So this brown one I can't grab with the yellow ends. It doesn't affect me to grab on. So I figured there need to be some sort of indication that wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Move through here.
So I haven't asked you this. I played this earlier. I didn't ask. Why yellow and brown? Is it because it's cinnamon and honey? Sugar and spice?
I don't think that was really discussed. Originally, it was black and white in the prototype.
Mm-hmm.
Carl picked yellow and brown, I guess. So
yeah,
it
was black and white, and we talked about ketchup and mustard and sugar and spice, and
I really liked the idea of ketchup and mustard just because it sounds absurd. It's like the name of a game. I don't know how we could actually have pulled that theme in.
There really are a very limited number of colors available in the Pico 8.
Oh, right. You're working off a palette. It's not, right?
Right.
Worth pointing out. This is Pico 8, so it's kind of a fake retro environment of fantasy consoles, it calls itself. I don't know. It's kind of fun to work in because it's pretty limited and it's easy to make progress on stuff. And this was one of the more relaxed game jams I've done, so it was nice and relaxing.
Mm-hmm. So how was it getting the physics set up? Because that was the first thing you guys did, right?
Yes. What's the question exactly?
Like how, what was the process of doing that in an environment like Pico 8?
It's programmed. I just did it myself.
Okay, so not especially more complicated because of the environment. Like you weren't limited.
Yeah, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, whatever you want to implement. There's no built-in physics or anything. It just draws sprites and stuff like that. So if you want physics, you just find the code off wherever you've done it before or whatever to implement it. This is pretty basic. It's just, two particles and a constraint that holds them together. So it's a couple dozen lines of code for all of the physics in the entire project. Nothing particularly complicated.
Can we, for people who haven't done Pico 8 development, can we see the environment? Or can you switch over to that?
Oh, sure. Okay, so it's got this weird kind of fake command line thing going on because it's trying to do this, a fake 8-bit thing. So, like, you can, see the different directories.
It's brought me back to my DOS days from the Tandy 1000 years ago.
Oh gosh, let's just open up. Okay, and then so at that point you can kind of hit escape, and it pulls you in. There's a code editor that's you don't really want to use. I used an external editor, but it's tabs and that sort of stuff. Got a little graphics editor that you can do, and then there's a tile map editor that's built in that lets you make tiles and stuff pretty easily. So if I switch back to our game. You can see, here's the graphics that we made for our game and the tile maps for that. So you can kind of see, we didn't really use up most of the tile map space. I wasn't really sure how much content we made. And then we made kind of a demo level and kind of ran out of steam to, make more. So it was like, well, it's playable. That's good enough. It's a game jam. So be done with that.
And Carl,
so it's all really basic tools in terms of like the the graphics editor. It's really straightforward pixel art editor. You can copy paste stuff in from an external program for that too if you don't want to do it in that.
And Carl, you did the art for it, right?
I did a lot of the art. Scott had some contributions to some of the tiles early on, which is a great help for me to follow his lead. This is my first time using Pico 8, and it was restrictive in some ways because of the colors and because I've spent so many years hitting the hotkeys and they didn't work for the brush or the fill. And it wasn't until much later on, actually today, that I realized I could use Sprite or Photoshop, and then I could use the import, export out the sprite sheet, import it in the sprite sheet, and replace it out, and that was significantly easier.
Yeah, it's all here for you, but it's not. If you're used to any of the tools that this is replicating, it probably feels pretty constraining.
Yeah, but it opened my eyes up to seeing this little world of developers and Pico 8 games and things, and
I think when I introduced Carl to it, I described it as being all the editors as being adequate, if not like particularly good themselves.
Right.
But provides access to people, and that's a or ideologically rather, that's an important quality that it has.
Oh yeah. I know somebody mentioned earlier using tile maps in Unity, and these tile maps make sense, and they're in the same screen. It's not hidden in a pop-up menu within a subset within, like, tile maps in Unity are there's a lot of assumptions that what those are doing and how they're being applied, and this is just it's a lot more straightforward.
Yeah, those constraints can be freeing because, like in Unity, you can do whatever you want, but like, how do you do anything?
Yep. I think simple things we can change in the tile map editor. You can hit run again, and you can see it in the game almost immediately. So.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
Somewhere you don't have to travel to.
Yeah, exactly. So we can just, plop some stuff down over here, and then you hit Control R, and you're back in the game.
There it is.
It's pretty easy to kind of just move through. It's the same if you use like an external editor for the code or whatever else. You just hit Control R, and it pulls it off the disk and runs it again. So.
Were those tiles meant to be large holds?
Yeah.
Yeah, originally we had designed some that were the 32 pixel size, and then changed it up, made it a little bit more challenging, but also I think more of a consistent spacing.
Yeah, with the smaller ones, it's easier to be more consistent about like the size of things. And also for simplicity, I just check the square tile bounds for the properties of the tile, like if you can grab it or not. So the square edges felt kind of weird from that. Yeah, I don't know. Like the entire code for the game is I scrolled through it before, is like 200 lines long. So I didn't put a lot of like particularly fancy features into it. Including, like writing our own physics and collision, so there's not a whole lot to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. It was an enjoyable jam.
Mm-hmm.
It was relaxed.
Well, I think this is an example where, you describe it as like technically mundane, but I think its charm is its design, and I think that's where you guys are really um, you got a winner. Is just it's a very clever mechanic, and once you realize how to use it, it is very intuitive. The on ramp's a little bit steeper than probably you'd like, but very very fun once you're in it.
I do appreciate that it's not possible to fall off. So it
that was
kind of
something
encourages you to keep trying, because it is very weird to start, but after
it's a little difficult at first.
After a while, it feels really natural.
Yeah, you kind of get a feel for the
it's a lot of fun.
The arcs and the physics.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you intend to continue with this, but whether or not you do, I do request just one large pegboard to be added.
Just to play around in.
Just to swing yourself around.
I would love to see a 2-player race in a game like this.
Oh man, that'd be cool.
Sure.
Like you have such a strong core that you could build a lot of different experiences inside of it.
Wow, denying somebody a peg to cling to.
Yeah.
Sure.
By grabbing it first.
Disappear after you grab them once or something.
Oh, there you go. Introduce some peril and some soft lock potential, either to puzzles or to competition.
Handholds.
Yeah. I love when a game jam, when you're done with it, you're like, you haven't exhausted the idea. That's a good sign.
Right. Well, that is our game. Is there any questions?
I think that's all I've got.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing it, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, and the last game that we've got this evening is from Red Shirt Ruckus. There, man, I don't know if you've had the role assigned to you as presenter. Go ahead, back out and rejoin and see if that works for you. I'll go ahead and do the same for Beth in case she has time to speak as well.
I think Taro Omiya, who's posting up in Global Game Jam General, is also interested in presenting.
Hey, what's going on? Hello, am I audible?
You are
Yes,
on,
we can
yeah.
hear you.
Indeed.
Taro, I
Yes.
also gave you the role so that you can present next.
All right, what's up? Global Game Jammers. This has been great. I hope you all had as much fun as I did this weekend. But we all know that's impossible because I made a game with Big Bang.
Sponsor synergy.
Yeah. Okay, great. Oh, we've got Beth in here. So
present now.
okay, so first we'll just take a moment to admire our scenery. Beth did a great job putting a lot of this together. We have a lot of what you're seeing is stuff that we just pulled out of the Big Bang library, but we've got some bespoke art in here, like my reactor and what else is custom in here, Beth?
These
these things.
4-panel
Yeah, we've got
animated power surgy things. Oh no, mutiny!
Oh, okay. Oh, we're giving too much away. All right, we better start playing this game. All right, so we'll catch the wave on the next one here. So I'm going to start jumping on our power button. We got to get the power up. Okay, foreign particles. Okay. Ooh. All right.
Barely made that one.
What we're doing is we're attempting to avoid bad things happening to our ship on our, I don't know, whatever we're doing. I don't think I ever even thought that far into the concept. So the idea is that we've got
no white science.
We've got different jobs that we're attempting to do, and I've got to keep the reactor running.
I'll jump you do the.
Yeah, and so she's keeping the reactor running now, and oh, foreign particles. Oh crap. Okay, so I gotta divert the power to make sure that we're keeping our ship safe. Safe from things.
Shields.
There's all kinds of external threats coming in. And this is pretty easy with 2 people. But we were planning on having some more distractions in the environment, like having to keep your. So there we go. We've hit our safe arrival. There we go. That's the end of the game.
Nice.
Yeah, we should check out a little bit more of the artwork. This
See, I added a cable up there.
pile of Robolus hilarious. Oh yeah, look at that.
This corpse under here is their initial asset that they give you to play around in their asset builder is a guy. It's a person. Somebody sliced his shoulder and head off and named it Mr. Default Burned. So I thought we kind of got to put him in there, and it does look like a little bit of a.
And there you can see that
error.
There's the failed state. So if morale gets too low, there's a mutiny. If the hull gets too low, your ship explodes. And that's pretty much it. It'll just kind of loop and loop forever. And that's kind of the nature of these games. This system is a lot like playing Minecraft custom games or Roblox, where you kind of just jump in and start playing with people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's designed to work in a lot of the same way. Oh yeah, and we can see so the reactor is low right now, and this is the one trick. I didn't get a good way of explaining this to people.
Loads.
Oh gosh.
I was waiting. I was purposely not doing shields. That's
okay,
the
so if we wait
stage,
for
right?
one more, yeah, and then the one trick is so we've got no power, and I wanted to create more dependencies like this, but this is what I got in. Okay, so if I try to divert to weapons here, so because we have no power, we can't divert. Oh no! Oh, it's all over. It's over very quickly. Can't fail very many times. That's pretty much it. That's the game. It was really challenging to build something in new tech. Big Bang is mostly like, they're clearly taking some cues from Unity. It's sort of a entity component system feeling type of thing. The multiplayer. So okay, I forgot to mention this. I was going to say this at the very beginning, but so right now, I'm going to put a link. I'm going to put a link in general. I kid you not. If you click that link, you could be in this game right now playing with us in multiplayer. But not just that. You could be editing the world with us in multiplayer. You'd have to set up an account, but I hear the sounds of people coming in.
Hi, guests! Look at you all! But the game breaks with more than 2 people right now, right?
Nope, no, I fixed that.
You fixed it! Woo!
Yeah, so we can have as many people as you want in here. So we got to divert
I'm
power
in the
to
one link. I'm in the one that you sent earlier. It's all by myself in an empty reactor room.
Yes, and you can send a link that's not the multiplayer, and somebody can take it and remix it and make it their own, and then share it with their friends.
Yeah, so I feel kind of like I'm shilling for Big Bang, but I don't care because I think this is just really, really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Can we see a little bit of the
for the Global Game Jam?
Yeah, I'm just doing my due diligence for them.
Yeah. Can we see a little bit of the editing environment? Can you switch over to that quickly?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, so I just hit this edit game button. And any of you, if you had if you were not just using a guest account, but if you had a real account, you could be doing all of the same things that I'm doing right now. And just to make things a little simpler, I run here out into the grass. So I can. It's in alpha, so things are a little bit difficult sometimes. Like you click on things and nothing happens, and then you click on it again, and then finally it works. So we can scale objects.
You can shoot it out into space.
Yeah, and then I can open up so for this computer panel, here's my view into what's going on here, and I can add a script to it, and just start coding right there. Or
what's the scripting like? I think there's a lot of these things use embedded languages like Lua, but just first impression, it looks a lot like C# or Java.
Yeah, so it's TypeScript, so it's a strongly typed version of JavaScript. So you get a lot of the type safety that you would expect from something like C#, but it's JavaScript under the hood, so you can reach for a lot of JavaScript things if that's what you're familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not super familiar with TypeScript, but I felt like it was not too difficult to get into, especially looking at some code examples.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel terribly different from C#. I can show you here some my craziest script. This is the script that everything ended up getting dumped into, just sort of by coincidence. And the editor is, it's pretty good because it's basically VS Code.
Yeah. Right, because VS Code's the text editor is open source, so it might exactly just be the. Yeah.
Yes, in fact, it is just VS Code. That's what this is.
Wow. Which itself is written in TypeScript.
Yeah, so I spent the entire weekend in the web browser building a game. The most difficult part by far and away was getting it all to work multiplayer. I was just, I just wanted to punish myself. So I wanted to make it multiplayer, so people could just jump in and start playing it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the next steps for this would be adding more activities, more distractions. I wanted to make it so that if you every time you do an action, it degrades morale, and then you have to go replenish your morale by drinking space cocktails. And the whole point being that if you're constantly having to go drink the spaced cocktails, it's forcing you to rotate the rolls, because you could see immediately, like, it was super easy for me to just jump on the button as much as I wanted, and then just have Beth go run the diverter.
Mhm.
But if we have more distractions, more activities, and we're wearing ourselves out, then we have to go back and drink more space cocktails and rotate out, and someone else has to take our spot. So there could be kind of like communication a little more.
Yeah,
a
you
little
could
more
really
chaos.
make it. It could really be an interesting multiplayer, really good teamwork challenge. There are games like it, but I think the tone you set is kind of absurdist in a way. Like this starship's always
totally.
falling apart, and a big part of why it's falling apart is that you're not doing enough drinking with the crew. Like, and like, how do you like solve that as an equation? That's really interesting.
Did you mention the not overdoing the charging of the reactor?
Oh no, yeah. So the other thing that I was going to put in that was actually like in the written scope at the beginning of the weekend was that if you overload the reactor, it would blow the plasma conduit over here. So this was like the next idea for like an activity is you'd have to come over here and replace the plasma the plasma gasket, whatever, I don't know, the thing. Have to fix the thing. Something moved.
Well, there's some people in here. That
I
so
set
there's
fire
some
to
stuff
your
that's probably
building.
moving.
And all of the guests are sacrificing themselves to the fire.
Oh, good.
So how do you think this platform?
Oh yeah, that's the test building. You can set that on fire. Did you go inside here?
I did. I was
First draft.
interested in seeing all the differences.
So how much experience do either of you have in similar sort of social building systems like Minecraft or Roblox or Fortnite, and how does this compare, either its potential or its direction?
Oh,
David?
Yeah, there's a lot of I don't have a whole ton of experience building for that kind of thing. I've played a few of them. My kids are more interested in that than I am. But I mean, the thing that hooked me was just like being able to edit a game as a team at the same time. I had my kid on the first night in here, and we were just like goofing around. He was dragging scenery out and placing it, and I was writing scripts to make things happen. It was just a ton of fun. Yeah, in terms of and I think that's like the big advantage. Like that's the selling point. How it compares in terms of power. Like Roblox has its own editor, sort of like it's like a Unity or Unreal type editor that uploads straight to the cloud. So it's pretty powerful, and in those terms, this has got a ways to catch up, because there's a ton of things that were difficult to do, and Beth is very familiar with all of them at this point. Because it was like, if I share this link, like, can people just can they just come and like start changing all my stuff? And it was like,
I mean, yes,
well,
they did.
yes, you can. Yeah, so it was really bizarre, and there's like things that you'd want to have, like permissions or something, so I could set like these people have these permissions in this world, these people don't. I know that there's ways to share these worlds so that like they can be played publicly without being able to be edited, but I don't know how to do that. There's also all kinds of confusion when it comes to like, how do you share things with people? That took a while.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this banner up at the top is, oops. The banner up at the top that says alpha is there for a reason, for sure.
Yeah.
I was like, where's our banner? What are you talking about up at the top?
That said, it's pretty dang strong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of just pre-made stuff that you can just pull into the world.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, I can't design an actual starship without just
I think
stuff together.
like with this kind of game, everybody's Hello World is an obstacle course, and that's pretty simple. You just drag stuff out. The colliders are there by default. Respawn is there by default. Lots of stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of it really reminds me of like the earliest kind of toys that were also interactive, things like HyperCard or the first versions of Flash, where it was the main draw was to play, and then you realized, oh, you could actually do a lot. And I think that's really exciting that there's platforms like that aren't who knows where this is destined, but that aren't solely marketplaces for children. We'll see this when it lands.
There's time.
Yep. Give him time.
Yeah, I think in time though, this is like something like this is going to be my go-to type of thing for a game jam, just because like I just have so much fun just like inhabiting the world, and especially like working remotely, like having your people embodied in your editor is really fun.
Oh yeah. That social aspect to the creation is more. Yeah, it's more than just voice chat. That's really cool.
Yeah, you can see like, oh, they're over there building the canyon out, and this person's over here doing this, building this part out. And I think also the way that they created the scripting system is actually kind of clever too, because it's really based on, it's like an event-based thing. So like if you want to communicate script to script, you're doing it through events, and what that forces you to do is to make just like everything super decoupled. So like you can just sort of start publishing events around what you're doing and listening to events that are out there, and you could have multiple developers scripting out some pretty complex things, as long as they're kind of coloring within those lines.
Yeah, that's like it's a way to teach encapsulation. That's really interesting, and like a encouraged architecture. It takes a lot of people to find their way there, but it looks like this is forcing you into it, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that this is the only time so far that during the presentation everybody being presented to get to show up and run around.
Yeah, like Zach was talking earlier about just how much cheaper VR is, but this provides a lot of what that experience provides, because so much of it happens in your imagination. It's not that much worse that it's on your screen instead of stereoscopically in your eyes.
I am seeing a lot of cats.
Maybe that means it's time for the presentation to end.
Yep. At least one more.
Reached capacity.
Oh man, David, you're gonna have fun fixing all this, huh?
Oh yeah, what kind of, do you have like save states or any
I
kind
really
of...
should have remixed this before I invited everybody to it.
Oh, you didn't remix it? Oh no.
That's what you get for trusting people.
This is sort of like this is like performance art.
Yep. Yep.
We're just burning it all down before we leave.
I burned
all
it
right.
down when I got there.
Yes, there is a giant fire on that building.
That is my favorite part. All right, thanks so much.
Yep, thanks everybody.
Great games, everybody.
Thanks for inviting
We've got
everybody
one
over.
more to present as a solo jammer, unless anybody else has a game as a solo participant as well. That is a game from Taro Omiya, or Omiya Games if he prefers. Let me make sure you've got your presenting role. Okay, you have your role as a presenter. If it doesn't let you speak, you may have to back out and rejoin. There we go.
Everyone hear me?
I can hear you.
Yep, we can hear you.
All right, cross fingers this works because typically, does that the right project? Anyways, yeah, cross this works. I've been having nightmares after nightmares on getting this to work at all. Does everyone see the Unity screen?
Yep, looks like it's working.
Yes.
Okay, so let's see if this works. Okay, I got the resume working. Hopefully you can hear the music too.
Yep.
So, oh, by the way, epilepsy warning. I should have started with that. Yeah, this there's gonna be a lot of flashing things, so be warned. But anyways, for this jam, for people who are following along with my development, you probably know how meandering I was with this. But eventually, what I came down to is this idea of having a webcam actually detect where your eyes are and using that information to observe particles in this world and make their waveform collapse and score a point once you observe it long enough and it stabilizes to like a specific position. It is very much a completely inaccurate artistically interpreted idea of quantum physics. So do not take this in any way, in any degree of scientific accuracy, because I most certainly don't understand quantum mechanics any more than next stranger on the street. But anyways, so here it is. I have the 111 seconds left. There's you're supposed to observe as many particles within 2 minutes. So let's go with it. So you can see like there's these particles that eventually stabilizes as you stare at it long enough. And you can see the score increasing on the top of the screen as you do so. So that's the basic gist of it. Unfortunately, I do not think the webcam portion of it itself is actually working on the build that I uploaded on the Global Game Jam website. If it does work, let me know. I don't think it. In my testing, it has not, so I apologize. But yeah, I've been having just many problems with Unity's way of implementing webcam technology. So. Maybe I can look a little more to the right. Oh, okay, it's not detecting me looking left or right. That's a little annoying. Any questions?
So how did you approach like difficulty for the game? Like in terms of how fast, like how hard should it be to get a score of X amount, or was it a matter of designing a system and then just letting it decide for itself what a high score would turn out to be?
Give me a minute. So yeah, it's a good question. Like in regards to the whole shakiness and everything, like so if I were to, oh never mind, I'm not gonna really touch that too much. Like if I were to like open up like what each particle thing looks like, you might notice that I have like this extra circle boundary, spherical boundary that actually is what I'm using to check to ray trace and to see like how large is this circle and to determine whether you're actually staring at it or not.
Mhm.
I think I just kind of did it by intuition. I like to use the simple method of just doubling doubling the value. So in this case, I doubled the radius until I felt it was kind of comfortable. Or
Yeah.
if it's like in between two doubled value, then find an average between the two and just keep averaging if I don't to kind of polish it. So it's entirely feel in my case.
That's good. So I know at the very start of the jam, you had like a bunch of ideas as you were trying to settle on what to put together, and even all the way up to the very end, you were kind of like toying with different notions, different features.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
so, lots of roads not taken. How do you feel about the path you ended up on, and would you want to like keep going in this direction, extend on what you've built this weekend?
Yeah, good question. So meandering is kind of my way of developing anyways, kind of like my default development of it. I think in this case, what I ended up doing had more to do with like just putting some ideas together, see how I felt about them, and then if it was possible for me to pursue any further. So the first problem obviously I encountered, I don't know if anyone was listening to my brainstorming process, I had a completely different game and mechanic in mind, and it just didn't feel good. The mechanic itself, that is. So I just like abandoned that on the first day.
Yeah.
Well, first day and bits a few hours of the second day. Then I switched to, at least face tracking. And at the time I was thinking like, all right, I could try implementing like a VTuber thing. But also, I'm expecting people to play this game. So a lot of the VTuber solutions I found online required, installing and running Python servers. And I'm like, okay, I can't really make a player do that. Unfortunately, I don't think the build online right now runs either. So that was so much for that effort. But what I meant to say was like, I tried looking for a solution online that I had a little more confidence, didn't require from the user too much setup to be able to play. So and from there, it's like, all right, I don't have the time to sync a 3D model with like a actual avatar with the face tracking technology that I've installed for this project. What else can I do? So I can grab a bunch of where the position of your body parts. So I just kind of placed that all around. And then from there, it's like just kind of gradually this idea of having some sort of quantum mechanics like mechanics, no pun intended. It's just sort of that sort of idea just kind of emerged over time. So like I said, it's just kind of meandering of me putting together like various technologies, various mechanics, see how I feel about them and see where I can kind of expand that idea from there. I think like personally, I just like the visual effect of the glitchiness of it. So I just kind of ran with that idea.
Yeah.
And like I also like the idea. I also kind of like find the the shaking of it, the shaking of each particle is like shrinking over time, just like a really satisfying visual effect. So
Yeah.
probably not very visually satisfying for most people, but personally, I just thought like there was something there in that animation. It's all shaders, by the way, if anyone's curious how I pulled that off.
Yeah, it's really interesting, like you were saying, that you sort of finding your way to it by seeing how it feels as you go. And what you end up with is a proof of concept that, like a lot of the things I've been praising tonight, are feel like toys you can play with. Like no matter how simple it is, you could sit in that environment for a long time, which proves how engaging it is. Which means you can take that and take it forward. You've proven that the idea works, and I think you're saying that satisfaction you get from staring it down. Even as a viewer, I can feel a little bit of that, even though I'm not the one doing it. So I totally think you're right about that.
Peter Yang tells me, I tell you, you should have done dive kick too. No, I'm fine. I can explore that game another time. Honestly, like if I wanted to explore that game idea, and I do have a far better solid idea for that, like I would want a week, not 2 days. So that's just my opinion on that.
Yeah, there's always next game jam, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, thanks for showing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank you again for teaching me everything I've ever needed to know about quantum physics. I feel like I've gotten a good grasp
the camera's
on
not working here, unfortunately. Oh well. Anyways.
I don't have a webcam at the moment, but I do have one that should be on its way. I'm excited to get a hold of it and play this for myself.
Well, what do you say, Nick? Is that the end of the night, or do we have any last minute folks popping in?
That's everybody that I know of. Is there anybody who hasn't presented yet that would like to? A solo endeavor that they worked on, or?
Well, if that's you, or you were one of the teams that presented tonight and want to do a more lengthy, more detailed postmortem, we invite you to IGDATC's game dev meeting in February, which Beth helped me out, but I think it's the 8th-ish or something. It's the second Wednesday of February, where we will be doing postmortems for Global Game Jam. So everyone's invited to do your own, a little bit like what we did tonight, but maybe getting into some more of the details and having as many of your team to talk about their contributions and maybe lessons learned and plans for the future and between now and then that get your mind going. You can sign up to present by emailing us. Is that right, Beth?
Yes, it is February 9th, would be the second Wednesday this year.
Okay.
And the email is in the info, but I will pop it in the chat one more time. IGDA Twin Cities at gmail.com. Which channel? Let's do. Oh, Peter, you did it. Thank you.
And that invitation goes out to folks who joined us with the Amber Waves crew. We're very happy to partner with Nick and Amber Waves this year. I think it went really well. It was a great show, everybody. Congrats.
Yes. Everyone, that means you. Exactly, Peter. If you are in this channel, you are invited to share your post-mortem. And I don't know if Playtest might be interested in featuring some of these. If you guys want to continue development and get some more feedback, we have our Playtest is the following Wednesday.
Yep, and that's co-hosted with Lane and myself and Dale. And we play games on stream, and we invite viewers to come play with us via Parsec, and we invite the devs on the chat to sort of do a little developer commentary as we walk through them. So that you're also invited to. Same email. Just let us know if you want to do a postmortem, do a playtest, or both. Doors are open.
I think that covers it. And yep, thanks again, all the Amber Waves of Games folks, for making this year Midwest Mingle.
We will have to do it again sometime.
Well, in that case, I can talk to you later about this. We don't know what things are going to look like 3 months out, if we're going to be able to meet in person. But for everybody here from the IGDA TC community, I do host an event on this server every 3 months, quarterly. So that's for a year. We're never too far away from the next event. I believe the next jam that we'll have here is the next Ludum Dare or Ludum Dare, if you're not the guy who started it and want to say it correctly. I think. I still don't know how I'm supposed to say it.
I think officially you can say it however you like, but I think most people say Dare.
That's the best decision.
Because it's like pseudo Latin, you know. But officially, no one is wrong, however they say it.
That's good. I appreciate that.
That's the spirit of the game jam, right? All paths lead to success.
As long as I learned from how I said it.
Well, Nick, thanks for partnering with us. Thanks for hosting here on the Amber Waves server, and hopefully, folks have done a little cross-pollination. So we'll see if we can keep this relationship going on, and we'll see everybody next time, right?
Sounds good to me. I'll be here.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night. Thanks, Amber Waves group.
Good night.